Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leah Smalley. I'm the Financial Aid Services Assistant Director. It is October 22nd, and I wanted to let everyone know that this will be the last webcast for this year. We are going to, for the holidays and all the conferences coming up, we are going to roll these back out starting in January, but I wanted to make that announcement first and foremost, and then I'll reiterate that at the end. I just wanted to let y'all know so that you can prepare for that, but we will be sending out any updates as needed through our typical notification system. But since I use this as a big communication piece, I wanted to let you know up front so that way you can make sure that you're checking our website and checking your notifications. That way you can get that information. So on today's topic list, I have a few things, and the first one is talking about our new Commissioner of Higher Education. You may or may not be aware that a new one started. We are also going to be talking about Financial Aid Database Report since it is Cycle 3 and going through that in more detail. We're going to be talking about User Access Annual Review, and I'm going to be doing a live demo on how to do that review and go through any questions you may have. And then any upcoming events and deadlines. And one of the big things I'd like to focus on today is deadlines, so we will get into that in just a moment. So, first and foremost, the new Commissioner of Higher Education. The new commissioner assumed his position on October 1st. The coordinating board voted unanimously on September 11th to appoint Dr. Harrison Keller to serve as our new commissioner. Dr. Keller comes from the coordinating board from UT Austin. He was serving as deputy to the president for strategy and policy. Previous to that, he served as vice provost for higher education and policy and research, and he founded On-Ramps and Texas On-Course initiatives. Earlier in his career, he served as Senior Education Policy Advisor and Director of Research for Representative Tom Craddock during his tenure as Speaker of the Texas House, and as a project director at UT Austin, the Charles Dana Center, if you're familiar with that. So he has a lot of experience with different places and a lot of education background. As far as his particular background on education, he received his bachelor's with honors from the University of Notre Dame, and he went on to receive his master's and doctoral degrees in philosophy from Georgetown University. And he also served as an intelligence officer in the Navy Reserve. So as you can see, he has a lot of experience in a lot of different areas, and we have all gotten the opportunity to talk with him. He's been setting up meetings with people so that he can learn all about the agency and our initiatives, and we're really excited to find out what direction he's going to be taking us and, just what his vision is for higher education in the years to come. So again, we're very excited about his new position here and just getting to know him. And so one of the things that we're trying to prepare for and to make sure that we have available to him is data. So for him to make decisions on higher education, he's going to need to be familiar with all sorts of different data. And as you may know, the coordinating board collects lots and lots of data. Not only from financial aid, but from different areas, enrollment, we do business office collections, there's all sorts of things that are collected. And so as you are very, very well aware, we have just entered Cycle 3 of Financial Aid Database. So I wanted to spend today kind of talking about why Financial Aid Database is such a big deal and why Cycle 3 is so important. So let's get started. Warning, deadlines are much closer than they appear, people. So we have a very important deadline coming up. And as you can see on the screen, for 1920, our Cycle 3 started September 30th, which is starting to near almost a month now. And we have had schools submitting files and working through the process, but we actually still have 5 to 6 schools still left on Cycle 2. So as you can see, with this cycle process, things are a little bit harder to get through the system because there's lots of steps involved, and reconciliation is a big piece of the FAS process these days. So December 16th is the deadline for cycle 3, and I did the math, and it's 8 weeks left. That's there's not a lot of time considering the amount of files that we've seen come through. So we are asking that all schools submit a first file no later than next Friday, which is November 1st. At that point, we're going to start reaching out to schools to see how we can assist you, because with that amount of time, it's very, very challenging to get through all the steps of FADS to get your data through to us. So we want to make sure that the files are moving through the process smoothly so that you can do all the different steps necessary to get your data to us. December 16th is, again, 8 weeks left. That's not a lot of time, especially with the holidays and some of these conferences that I mentioned in the beginning. So let's talk about the FAD process summary, just real high level. And again, I'm drawing attention to the fact that one of the most difficult pieces in FADS is the reconciliation. That's why I have the green box there. It's very big because I want people to understand that it's difficult for pretty much everyone. And it's really just using the resources here at the coordinating board and working with all the different areas of your school to get those programs reconciled. So just talking through the process a little bit, especially if we have newer folks on the line. The way that this process works is that a file is submitted to the coordinating board, and it runs through a program where you have to resolve certain errors in the file, because no file will ever go through the system the first time clean. It's just not possible. So once it resolves all the errors, then you go into a process that we call reconciliation. And I will say this is the most challenging piece, because you're trying to align your file with all the totals for the state programs with what we have at the coordinating board. And there's a lot of moving pieces on the institution side. Y'all get more money in, you return money, you move money around to different students. So it is kind of a moving target. So I want to focus on that a little bit today, just to kind of talk through what reconciliation means, and really talk about how we can partner together so that we can get the files through more quickly for cycle 3. So the reconciliation process is towards the end of the process. And again, one of the things that we recognized was that schools weren't always familiar or aware of when you're getting your errors, what totals the coordinating board has on file. So in our system, we have all the different programs on how much money we paid out to you. And then when you submit your file to us, that has to align with what we paid. Well, as you know, again, I talked about a moving target. Sometimes the numbers that we've entered on our end have changed, either because you requested more funding, we transferred money, we returned money. There's all sorts of different factors in that. So it's kind of like you said, it's when you get those numbers, you have to try and make your file align to that. So that's when the reconciliation process comes in. So just wanted to touch on this for just a moment. When we looked at cycle 3 totals, we used the validated totals that you submitted in cycle 2. And then any requests, transfers, or returns after the date you validated should be accounted for in your new cycle 3 totals. And those are for the programs that are listed. So that's going to be TEG, TEOG, Texas Grant, Educational Aid, Bilingual Education, and your work study funding. So those programs, again, when you submit your file through, that's what you're going to be aligning it with. So every school is going to be different there, because each school validated on a different day. Some, maybe some of them are the same, but depending on when you did that, that's what you'll want to understand when you're submitting the file. Now, the loan programs were based on our system, and that's going to be any funds dispersed in our HELM system, the Higher Education Loan Management System, as of September 24th. So we pulled a list of students that received the 3 loan programs, BOT, CAL, and TASP, and we uploaded those student details into the Move It site so that you can download those students to compare to your file that you submitted to us. So that, again, that's really important, because anything that you return to us or anything that doesn't align with that student level detail is going to not reconcile with us, and that's what you're going to need to look at. Two important notes I have here at the bottom. One, when you are doing your educational aid funds in your FAS file, you want to make sure to exclude your institutional match. Otherwise, it won't align, because we're only reconciling what we paid you, and the institutional match is beyond what we paid you. The other note there is your mentorship program totals. Those are going to be the expended funds that were spent between August of 18 and September 1st of 18 through August 31st of 19. So the financial report that's sent from the program director as of September 5th, those totals were loaded into our system. So this one is really important because mentorship is not always handled in financial aid. There's almost always a separate area that is handling this program. So it's critical that people are working together at the institutions. And then, of course, here we have multiple areas. So there's a lot of different collaborations that are going to have to happen for this program to be reconciled. And that's for any of these. I know many of the institutions, they have dedicated loan areas, they have state grant areas, they may have a work study area, depending on the size of your school. So FAS is one of those things where reconciliation is not just one easy form to fill out. You know, there's lots of steps and lots of people involved that need to look at their information to make sure that it's right. So moving on, I wanted to just touch on this again, and I'm going to just reiterate one thing real quick, and that is back in June, I did a relatively extensive review of FAS. It went through the manual, it went through all the different steps, it went through the different report types and what they mean, and I'm not going to go through that today because I already have that recorded for you. So you can go back to the June one, which is listed on our website, and look at that. But on today's, I just want to show you an example of what I say is easy, but the form can be easy as long as you understand, again, what totals you're comparing it to. So when you're reconciling the grants, when you pull your report from Move It that shows your totals, if you find something that is flagged reconcile, you would want to review that to compare to see where the difference is. Sometimes the difference is going to warrant you sending us money back. Sometimes it's that you moved grant funds between students and it changed where the money is in your file. For example, in this example I'm going to show you, this is a grant file. Up here, it says that the Texas grant program had initial year and renewal year. The coordinating board counts had 1,500 students and 2,500 students, and then 7,500,000, and then the 125 million. The institution count had 1,750. And it also had 2,250 for the renewal students. So you can see in red there where I've identified the discrepancy. And you can see that for initial year students, it's over by 250. And the renewal year students, it's under by 250. So it all comes out as the same totals, but it's in the wrong buckets. So this is an example where you would have to send us something so that we can update our end so that your student counts align in your file that you're sending us. So in this example, you would send an increase of 250 and you would send a decrease of 250 and then an explanation as to why that happened, either because of ineligibility, maybe it was in this example it was miscoded. You know, there's a variety of different things that happen at the institution that we just want to have that for documentation purposes. So if you were audited or if we had to explain it, we can show where those funds and those student counts went. So Loans is a little different. Like I explained a minute ago, loan reconciliation is one of the most challenging, and that's because you're reconciling student by student on every single one. And our system here at the coordinating board goes by a fiscal year. That's how we pull data, and yours is by loan period typically, and that falls within your academic year. So sometimes the two just don't align, either because of the date ranges or because of the timing of it. So what we do, like I mentioned, is we pull a list of student details based on our reporting period, and then your file will either align with that, which I've never seen anyone's align perfectly, but if not, then you have an opportunity to add or remove or adjust students as needed so that you can make sure that your file that you're sending us with all that data matches our system. So again, sometimes that's going to mean that you're going to send us money back. Sometimes you've already sent it. For example, when I first started, I mentioned that this student loan detail was pulled on September the 24th. So maybe on the 25th, your business office returned a loan for a student. So now your file is not going to match the student loan detail that we have in our system. So that's where this process comes into play, where you have to look at each individual thing and make those adjustments as necessary. So for the loan piece, you do download the spreadsheet from the Move It system. You'll update all the adjustments on the spreadsheet and send that back to us through Move It. Because it has social security numbers, we have to have that for security purposes. And then in addition, you will fill out a reconciliation form just like the grants. You'll want to communicate what those changes are and document the explanation on the spreadsheet. So that is a big difference, is that on the grants, you're going to put the explanation on the form. And for loans, you're simply telling us the adjustments, but the explanation is for each individual student. So I just said a lot of information really, really fast. I know that, again, I could probably go on and on about reconciliation. I will stop for just a moment on this one and see if I have any questions before I move on to program comparison. Are there any questions on reconciliation or the deadline, or something I can answer about FADs as I talk about program comparison? If you can start typing those questions now, and then I'll share with the group, I'm going to move forward with program comparison. So back in June, I mentioned this as well. We also mentioned this at the TASFA conference on why this report is so critical. And up until now, I don't know that people really realized the value of this report. This report is going to compare data from cycle year to cycle year. So it's going to do exactly, if you're in cycle 3, it's going to compare cycle 3 from last year. And the reason that this is important is it's going to try and identify big discrepancies in what you reported from year to year. The first year we did this, we saw a lot of discrepancies because we were going from one big submission to 3 individual cycles. So we did see that because we added a lot of extra data elements. So now that we've been doing these cycles for a while, these should really, really be a big indicator of something that's going on with your file. So anytime you see something marked with review, that's an indication that something shifted from one year to the next that you want to be aware of. In this example, you'll notice that at the bottom on need analysis, there was a 94% difference. That's saying that in one year, you only got 214 students, and then the next year you had 3,600 students. So again, this is just an example, but it's showing you that there was a huge shift in those that completed a FAS or TASFA. So you want to go back and make sure that the data you submitted to us is correct. The reason I bring this up, we have had over the past year some of the schools coming back saying, hey, guess what? Our data wasn't quite right. We didn't realize it. And Unfortunately, it's very difficult to change data once it is certified. Certified data is used internally at this agency. It's used by legislators. It's used by third parties that are trying to do analysis of financial aid in higher education. It's going to be used by our new commissioner, like I mentioned. It's sent to the budget board for their analysis. So once we certify data, that's your stamp of, I have checked this data. It is as accurate as it can possibly be for us to move forward with things. One of the biggest things that it can impact is your allocations. Allocations are generated from the data that you submit to us, and we use that every year in our formulas. So if your data isn't quite right, it could severely impact how much you're going to get in your funding for your students. So I bring this up again because we're entering the end of the third cycle. We have a deadline that's coming up in 8 weeks, which is very quick, and we have a lot of schools that are just now either submitting a file or have not submitted a file at all, and that is really going to limit the amount of time you have to make sure that your data is correct. Now, I will tell you, for the first time ever, we are going to allow schools a chance to look at their data after they've certified. We've never done this before, but because we've seen some of the issues with the data and the new cycles and everything else, we are going to do that this year. So we're going to allow you to certify, and then you'll have a little time there to make sure it's correct. But after that, it's basically locked down, and you won't have the ability to change anything. So really take this time to make sure that your data is correct, because again, it can impact your students. It can impact a lot of different things. So let me see if I got any question. Not one question on FAS. Y'all must be pros. I know you're just actually working on your other screen right now to try and get your files through. And I can hear y'all laughing too, because I have a magical gift. Okay, so I already talked about questions. So another thing with FADs that I didn't mention that I think is pretty rampant at this point is that we've had a lot of new staff. We've got a lot of turnover. We have people retiring, moving, getting promoted, switching schools. Like, there's all sorts of stuff. And this makes it difficult to do FADs, and we recognize that. So one of the things that we recommend is definitely reach out to us if you have new staff or if you're brand new to the process, because what we can do is we can work with you on your FADs. We can work with you to get things set up and help you navigate through all of the different complexities of state financial aid, because it is very overwhelming. But one of the things that we do every year that is huge is something called our User Access Annual Review. And if you're new or if you have new staff, this is super critical. We do this once a year, typically in the fall, and the reason we do it is to make sure that the accounts that we have set up for the institutions are accurate. We don't always know when people leave the institution. We don't have a way to track that very easily. It helps when institutions identify that, but it's a ongoing activity month after month that everyone has to be aware of to ensure something called cybersecurity. So you may know this, but October is National Cybersecurity Month. So we're in it right now, which is one of the reasons we try and do this around this time in the year, so that we can make sure that all of our accounts are up to date. So cybersecurity is something that refers to processes, practices, and technology designed to protect our networks, our devices, our programs, and all of our data from any attacks or damage from unauthorized access. I can't stress this enough. We live in a world now where everything is web-based. People have the ability to log in from their cell phones, iPads, from their laptops at home, and people do bad things. It's just the way that life is. So we have to be proactive and very conscientious of it when people come and go, that you have something set up at your institution to monitor your user access, because it's contingent on you telling us that someone is gone or that someone joined your team for us to get your access set up properly. So what we do again each year is we send something out to the schools, and I'm going to go through this as a live demo in just a moment, but we do this to check that your HelmNet accounts, your CB Pass accounts, and your Move It accounts are all up to date with the proper people. So about 2 weeks ago, I'm lagging on the date here, I don't remember which day we sent it out. We sent out a notification to all institutions for this annual process, and it has 3 steps. You open the spreadsheet that we sent you, you look at the accounts that are on it, and then if changes are necessary, you're going to submit those to us, and you complete a survey to let us know that you've completed the process. So what I thought I'd do today is go through that with you. Some of you may have done it. We've received, I think, about 40 schools, and we have about 145 schools. So definitely we've got about a third of the schools done. So we just need to kind of keep those moving. So I thought I'd walk through that together today, and then we can ask questions if you have some. I'm looking back at my screen on the questions that have come up. And let me see what screen I'm on here. I am on screen 20 for someone who asked. But what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go to my live screen, which is something I like to do sometimes. And I'm going to pull up the spreadsheet that was sent out to the institutions. Again, this was sent out and is posted on our website. And so I'm going to actually pull that up for y'all because I like people to see things in real time. So this is the coordinating board's website for SFAP. This is our main screen here. If you go to Stay Connected, one of the recent communications is the User Access Portal review. And when you click on that, a spreadsheet is going to open, and it's going to look like this. And the way that this spreadsheet works is you'll scroll down to find your institution in the list, and you'll simply double click that. In the event it doesn't work, it's usually because there's a yellow bar at the top that says Enable Content. You have to do that first. I'm going to scroll down to my institution. So I am the THECB University, and when I double click on it, what it does is it filters the list on the Others tab here, and it shows me just the people dedicated to my institution. You do have the ability to unfilter this if you want to see all people on there. There's no information that's personal information on there that they can't get on the internet, so that's why all of this information is there. You'll go through the list just to make sure that each of the people listed on here is correct. You don't have title because this is a mock spreadsheet, but you will have the system associated with the person, the OPEID or FAS code. You'll have the first and last name and all of this here. You'll want to make sure that all of that is correct. Once you've done that, you're going to click on the survey, and it's going to load. And this, again, this is identical to the memo that was sent out. It's just a repeat so that if you need the additional information, it's there. But the survey itself, if you scroll down, is you have 2 options. I reviewed the list and I confirm that there's no changes whatsoever. Everything is good. All of my people are up to date. So you'll click that option, you'll fill this out and hit submit. 9 times out of 10, there's somebody on your list that either you need to add or you need to remove. By selecting this second box, this is saying that you will be sending us a system authorization form within 2 business days of submitting the survey. And we want that just so that we can track these and get them through. We would hate for you to do all this work and then forget to submit the form to us. So this is, again, just saying that you're going to add or remove people and that you'll submit that within 2 days. We recommend you go ahead and do it at the same time. So for demonstration purposes, I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to pretend. And it's loading, sorry. Oop, here it is. It's linked up in the top if you want to do it that way. We tried to embed everything within each thing. It says you can no longer see my screen. So can everyone, just before I move forward, Can anyone else confirm that you can still see my screen before I keep going? Okay, good. So I apologize if you cannot. It's probably a technical difficulty. Luckily, I'm recording it. Okay, so moving on. This is the system authorization form. You'll scroll down, enter all the institution's information. The director or higher has to fill this out, and then they have to e-sign this and then scroll down to the appropriate sections. You have a section to add HelmNet access. This is for people who will be certifying loan applications in our loan system. And then this section is to update access. This would be for updating people's first name, last name. Sometimes people get married, sometimes they get promoted, they change roles. This is really to simply communicate a change in something so that we can have the proper information. Sometimes people's emails change, so that's how you communicate that to us. And this last section is to remove access. So the options, there's a drop-down menu. You have HelmNet or CBPass. Once you enter those in here, you'll need to list the reason for our documentation purposes, and then we'll update their account and remove those. This last section here is for Move It DMZ. Again, this is our file system that allows you to send and receive data files. And this is only designated for the director, and then currently we allow 2 designees, and that's so if you get locked out or you need to access that information, it's not only the director that can call and get that information from the coordinating board. So that's what this section is designed to do. It's not given individual accounts at this point. It's one individual institutional account. Once the form is completely filled out and signed, then when you hit submit, it will launch an email, and it will attach this e-signed form to that, and it will be sent to our team here to review. We do look at that and add it to an internal tracking that we do for all the user accounts. And I'll tell you right now, this is a very, very complex process because we have 145 schools and we've got multiple users at all these schools for all these systems. So when you're doing your review for the year, if you find something where you feel like there's a discrepancy, that's when you'll want to communicate that to us, either because someone is missing, maybe they have access and it's not on our list. That is why we're doing this process. We want to make sure that we have a record of each person that has access to our systems, and so that you know which staff have access on your end as well. I will tell you, this is something that we're evaluating this upcoming year to see how we can streamline the process better than it is now. We know that it's something that the institutions have communicated to us, that they want something that's clearer and easier, and we agree. So it's one of the big things that we're going to assess and then try and figure out some new things to improve the process. So stay tuned on that. So that is a demo of the process. I will tell you that within the memo this year and within the survey, we do have a module that was recorded by one of my staff this year. So that's something new that we included that walks through it in even more detail than I went through today. So feel free to watch that. And if you have any questions on user access, if you can go ahead and start submitting those through to me, I'm going to circle back. I had a question a little while ago and I was unable to answer it, and it was regarding the FADs. So before we move on to the last section, let me circle back. It says, regarding loan program reconciliation and updating the form, do we just indicate the increase from the last cycle? For example, we gained 10 students. So this looks like a very detailed question, and Jennifer, I will definitely answer it, but what I'll probably do is if you can send me your email or your information, I'll have my email at the end of this presentation. We can set up a time to talk about it. That way I can make sure, because I'd hate to go through something super detailed and then I'm trying to confuse everybody on here. So I will do that in just a moment. So going back to the presentation, we're going to just touch base on a couple of quick updates and then we will wrap up. So An update that came out recently was that the coordinating board updated our website platform, and so we were getting calls that people's favorites were not working, their bookmarked favorites. So I just wanted to bring that up in the event that you click on something that you haven't used in a while and it gives you an error. It's because, again, we moved servers. So you'll want to update those with these new links, or you can simply Google the coordinating board and just use that path and then resave all your bookmarks. I had to do the same myself. I was like, uh-oh, something's broken, but it turned out I just needed to refresh all my bookmarks. So just wanted to mention that. Again, it did generate some questions and we wanted to let everybody know. Upcoming dates, we just talked about FAS. It's coming up on December 16th. So I know y'all are so excited to get off this webcast so you can go work on your FAD files. I just can feel the energy through the computer. The user access annual review, November 15th. It's just a couple of weeks away. Really, it shouldn't be a time-consuming activity. You just use the spreadsheet, find your people, submit the survey, done. You're done for the year. But it is an ongoing process. This is just the annual review that we do each year, but you do need to actively monitor your accounts. And then the 1920 Be on Time reallocation process is coming up for private institutions. We will be sending out that notification letting you know if you have any funding left and that if you're asking for additional funds, how to go about that. So stay tuned on that. We have not released that yet, but it will be coming. And then finally, I did not put this on here because I don't have a date exactly, but state-funded campus-based report, which is primarily tracking the TPEG funds, has not gone out yet. So if you're wondering where that is, we are simplifying the form this year. We're trying to make it easier to complete. And so as soon as we have that available, we'll be sending it out, but we have not posted or put it out there. But we do have that posted as a deadline in November. So we will be evaluating that deadline to make sure that schools have adequate time to complete it. And then lastly, I mentioned this for everybody on the call that wasn't on at the very, very beginning. I did mention that there won't be a webcast for November or December simply because the holidays and all the conferences for FSA, and I think there's another one as well. I think there's a SWASFA conference. I don't remember which dates, but it's very difficult to make sure that we have enough participants. And luckily, we've gone through so many topics this year that I feel really good about the number of things that we've been able to go through. And this is going to allow my team and I to assess what we need to go through for next year and kind of come up with some new and fun ways to get information out to the institutions, whether that's campus visits or some training modules, some really dedicated topics, because I know that that's some of the feedback that we have received. So speaking of that, my last slide always is, here's my contact information and my webcast survey. Because this is the last webcast of the year, I really encourage people to complete this so that I know if it's a good tool and if we should continue to do them, if we should make more of them. And this gives us topic ideas. So if you can help us by collecting that, again, for the next 2 months, we're going to be working on how to expand training and communications for next year in 2020. Any issues with user access, there's the email account. And then, of course, we have 2 dedicated phone lines here in our area. One is strictly for institutions, which is 844-792-2640. It's open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 p.m. And then we have Texas Financial Aid Information Center. That's dedicated to typically to students who are looking to pursue higher education. We don't usually get a lot of students that are attending institutions, but if they have general questions, that is a line that the state provides so that they can call with questions on applying for financial aid or even attending college. So those are there. So that is what I have for this year. I do have some questions that are popping up. So let's just see. Jennifer S. said, what did you say about TPEG coming out in November? So we are wrapping up the form for this year, Jennifer. We're trying to get that released. We're simplifying the form by removing a couple of the sections and making the examples clearer this year. So we're trying to get that out, and then we will communicate whatever deadline is associated with that form. I just wanted to communicate that it hasn't been sent, and so people aren't scrambling trying to find it on the website because it hasn't been sent out yet. So that was that one. Laura, when will the spring 2020 calendar be released? It only shows fall. Good. Thank you for bringing that up. So we decided this year to release those in, to kind of align with the semesters so that they were a little bit more flexible, and that we were able to add things and remove things as necessary. So we'll be working on the spring calendar in the next couple months through the holidays so that it's posted and ready to go. So I don't have a date on that yet, Lori, but definitely soon. Let's see. I think it's twice. Let me see if there's some other. I see some other people typing. So give people a moment. Any questions that I can answer, hopefully related to these topics, but if you are dying to ask me a question that would relate to everyone on the call, feel free. I don't see anything popping through. Okay, so I hope that this was valuable. I try and make things as relevant as possible to what's going on at the time. Again, the survey's out there to encourage people to provide topics, and we are working on expanding training for this next year. So stay tuned for that piece of it. And I hope that this was useful. And since I won't talk to y'all, I hope everyone has a fantastic holiday season. And please keep in touch with us. I know a lot of y'all shut down. Lucky. For those of you who don't, we don't either. So we will be here. So feel free to reach out. We are here to help you. That is what Financial Aid Services is designed to do. We are institutional support. We want to help you in any way we can. So please just reach out and have a wonderful week. Thank you so much, everybody.